Today I will share with you everything you need to know about the United States cruising ban. I am Lyle from Lion Voyages with more cruise tips and news. Welcome back. On April 9th, the CDC, or the Centers for Disease Control, put in place a very strict cruise ban on the cruise industry with a long list of terms and conditions that the cruise industry has to address or put in place before they'll even think about lifting the ban. The no-sail order, dubbed the cruise ban, is 9 pages long. I have it linked in the description below if you would like to read the order for yourself. I'll try to break it down here and put it into 3 different sections. The first section, why the ban was put into place. Second, how long the ban will be. And third, what systems and precautionary measures the cruise industry must put in place and get approved by the CDC before they can start to sail again. First, let's look at why the ban was put into place. The US government feels that the cruise industry has a high risk of bringing the virus into the United States as well as spreading it around the country. They feel the cruise industry has not done enough to stop the spread nor deal with the outbreaks that they do have on board. And then the third one is that they say that the cruise industry is way too reliant on the US healthcare system and its resources in dealing with the outbreaks on the ship. Now let's look at how long the ban will be. According to the order, there are 3 ways to lift the ban. The first way to lift the ban would be to have a declaration from the Secretary of Health and Human Services that COVID-19 no longer poses a threat or is a public health emergency. The second way the ban could be lifted is if the CDC changes or rescinds the ban altogether for some reason. And the third specifies a length of time. It states that if the other 2 have not happened, like the threat being lifted or the order being rescinded, then cruising can begin to commence after 100 days. And the 100-day mark from the posting of the ban would be Saturday, July 18th. So what must the cruise lines do? In those 100 days, the cruise lines have a list of items they must address and get approved by the CDC or the US Coast Guard before they can resume operations. Now let's look at a list of safety measures the cruise lines must put in place. The first thing they'll have to do in order to resume cruising has to do with the screening and monitoring of passengers and crew. This will include anyone with respiratory illnesses, any sort of flu-like symptoms, pneumonia, and of course COVID-19. This will also mean that it's going to be more than just temperature checks. The cruise line will also have to have some sort of ability to test for COVID-19 on board. So the second item on the order has to do with reporting. The cruise lines must report on the number of people on board infected and any increase in the number of people with COVID-19 on a daily basis to the CDC and the Coast Guard. The next thing is how the cruise lines will deal with outbreaks. So what this means is that the cruise lines will have to deal with the outbreaks themselves without having to rely on resources on land. This includes the use of additional ships. The order talks about having a hospital ship for the infected people, a residential ship for those providing the care and treatment, and a quarantine ship for the people exposed. So this means if there is an outbreak, the cruise lines will have to have the ability to deal with this on their own by dispersing people across 3 different ships. The same way it would be handled on land by separating people into different wings or wards of a hospital. The fourth thing on the list is they want to know more about the condition of the medical facilities on board. For example, the number of doctors and nurses, as well as the amount and types of equipment available in the facility. They would want to know how many ventilators they have available at any time. They want to know how many face masks, hospital beds, and other personal protective equipment. Medical facilities on board are usually there just to stabilize you in an emergency until you can get to port. This new order is a fundamental change to the way they operate. It basically changes the function of the medical facilities into hospitals, meaning that they will have to have enough ventilators and equipment, as well as staff, to handle the outbreaks and limit the spread of the virus to land. So the next thing that struck me was that the CDC wants to know how the cruise lines will deal with social distancing on board. Now this sort of implies an ongoing social distancing, not just during embarkation and keeping 6 feet apart. What are they going to do on board? Um, some of the Asian cruise lines have spoken of trying to continue the social distancing on board. And the ways that they're talking of doing it is not allowing all the venues to be full. For example, only allowing the theater to be half full or reducing the number of guests in any particular venue at one time. Most cruise lines' revenue model is to try and get as many people on board as they can. This order might change things a bit and reduce the number of people allowed on board. The next item is repatriation, or how the cruise line will get passengers and crew back home to the United States or other countries if there are any issues. The order explicitly states that commercial means of travel are prohibited. This means that the cruise line will only be able to use private transportation, like chartered private transport or flights. They basically want to limit the spread of the virus through normal travel channels and keep the infected or possibly infected from coming into contact with other people. The last item on the order is the cleaning and disinfecting of a cruise ship when an outbreak does occur. The CDC wants to have a very detailed plan of how the cruise lines plan to disinfect the ship from bow to stern, top to bottom. This should be one of the easiest items for the cruise lines because, well, they already deal with norovirus and other outbreaks that have happened on ships, so they already have plans in place to clean. It may need to go a little bit deeper into the crew quarters where they talk about cleaning more of the crew quarters and things that we don't usually know about, but it should be pretty easy for them. This CDC order is pretty significant. It implies that cruising will be shut down well into July and maybe even further. The CDC not only has to be satisfied that the outbreak on land is under control, but also they have to be convinced that those 7 things are in place. Some of the changes are significant changes to how the cruise lines operate, like the size and capacity of the medical facility and the number of passengers on board. So that is the latest update on the ban. I will make more videos to help keep you informed as this situation changes. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button. And if you want more of them, please also consider subscribing. It really helps our channel grow. See you next time.